All right, we're going to reconvene in an open meeting, and we did have a closed meeting that we need to certify.
Yes, I'll read the certification for you. Did each of you certify that, to the best of your knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board of Supervisors in the closed meeting?
Is a roll call vote. Mr. Settle?
Aye.
Mr. Jenna?
Yes.
Ms. Comer?
Aye.
Mr. Whitson?
Aye.
And I also. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the public hearing for the BoardDocs secondary 6-year plan. The way we do this is we'll have someone that'll come up and speak to it. We've got them with BoardDoc here tonight. And when I open the public hearing, be recognized, come up, give us your name and your district. And we limit the public hearing comments to 5 minutes per person. We will have a clock on the screens. So please just be aware at 5 minutes we're gonna say wrap it up.
I'm going to give the introduction and Ben will tag team as necessary. Each year, the Board of Supervisors has the opportunity to direct fairly restricted VDOT funding to hard surface gravel roads in the county as part of the 6-year secondary road plan. This generally happens in May, and the board has in the past adopted priority road lists that are funded in the SSYP, a 6-year plan. So the last road on the plan would be expected to be constructed 6 years from now. This is a long journey, and every year as the plan advances forward, capacity is available at the end of that plan. So to year 5, year 6, there might be capacity for roads to be added. The current priority list is Kaiser Run Road, which road from last year, which road is complete. A section of Fortin Hollow Road, which if any of you traveled it recently, was just recently received a hard surface, and it's very nearly complete. After that is Pulley's Bluff Road, then one section of Turkey Ridge Road, then a section of the entire length of Sycamore Ridge Road, then the remaining portion of Castleton View Road, and those are the items that are on the current plan. The Board of Supervisors considered at their last meeting which additional roads might be that they want to put out to the public to hear from you whether they should be added to the tail end of this list. And the sections to be considered at this public hearing are another section of Turkey Ridge Road, the first southern section of Castle Mountain Road, then the next 0.4 miles of Castle Mountain Road after that, the remaining portion of Fortin Hollow Road, and then O'Bannon's Mill Road. So those are the roads from which the board can select to add to the 6-year plan after hearing from the public at this meeting. This public hearing was advertised in the newspaper, as well as most of you are aware, advertised in the field by some step-in signs that probably got your attention. And my office received a number of calls in support for Fortin Hollow Road and Castle Mountain Road. And I imagine you'll hear from some of those folks tonight. We'll be able to answer specific questions about these road segments after you hear from the public. Okay.
So at this time, I will open the public hearing for the VDOT secondary 6-year plan only. So if you're going to speak to that, please be recognized. Come on. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Good evening, my name is Roderick Osborne, and I'm from Stonewall Hawthorne District. I live at 96 Castle Mountain Road in Castleton. I spoke last year at the BOCS as to the need to remedy what many of my neighbors and I believe has become an untenable situation with regards to the safety of the travelers on Castle Mountain Road. At that time, I also pointed out to much of some people's surprise that the school buses won't even travel that road and haven't for several years due to the unsafe conditions, leaving parents to have to wait to at either end of the road to drop off or pick up their children. My wife Deborah and I, she's here this evening with me, she will not be speaking, built our home on that road 22 years ago. Since that time, the number of homeowners on that 2.5 mile stretch of road has increased significantly. What was once a sparsely traveled gravel road has seen an increased number of cars, trucks, delivery companies such as UPS and FedEx. As a side effect of this unfortunate development, potholes, dust, and erosion has increased as well. Our road is either exceedingly dusty, muddy, or pothole ridden, which makes for poor traction and visibility. Even within a matter of few weeks after being scraped by VDOT, which only happens 2 to 3 times a year. After last year's meeting, VDOT put up a traffic counter on our road to determine the number of travelers to see if the road broke the threshold of 50 cars per day. And I imagine we did so, even though those numbers are unknown to me. There are many on our road who believe it is past time to do something about this, and my wife and I can be counted among them. These conditions are unsafe, and it is our hope that the BOCS and VDOT not only move forward with the proposed paving, but do so with haste. I also have a letter from my neighbor Craig LaValle, who is unable to be here this evening. And I'm going to read that as well, if for my minute I have enough time. Dear members of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors, good evening. My name is Craig Valley, and I reside at 64 Castle Mountain Road. I'm writing in strong support of the proposed paving project for Castle Mountain. I understand and appreciate that rural roads are a part of the character of Rappahannock County. However, this request is not about convenience or changing the rural nature of our community. It is about safety, proper drainage, maintenance, public health, and quality of life for the residents who live along this road. For years, runoff and washout from Castle Mountain Road have carried dirt, gravel, and debris onto my property. The upper portion of my field has accumulated approximately 3 cubic yards of material over the past couple of years alone. That level of washout is not normal wear and tear. It is evidence of an ongoing infrastructure and drainage problem that continues to place the maintenance burden on the residents and private property owners on this road. The drainage issues is also directly affecting his driveway. The culvert pipe that runs underneath his driveway is repeatedly blocked by leaves, mud, and sediment coming from the road. This creates recurring maintenance problems, requires repeated attention and service calls, and increases the risk of flooding, erosion, and driveway damage. Paving Castle Mountain Road along with properly designated or designed drainage controls would help correct these issues at the source rather than continuing to push the burden onto individual property owners. Dust is another serious concern. During dry periods, traffic on that dirt road creates constant airborne dust and settles on homes, vehicles, fields, and nearby properties. This is more than an inconvenience. Both I and a nearby neighbor deal with respiratory problems, and so do I. And the amount of dust generated by the road creates real health concern. I also have horses on my property, and while I will not attempt to speak as a veterinarian, it is reasonable to be concerned about the potential impact of repeated dust exposure on these animals as well. Most importantly, this is a roadway safety issue. Castle Mountain Road is effectively deemed unsuitable for school buses to travel for student pickup and drop-off. As a result, parents are forced to drive their children to an intersection of Castle Mountain Road and Castleton Ford Road. When 3 or 4 vehicles are parked near this intersection, visibility becomes limited and the area becomes more dangerous for everyone to try to enter or exit or pass through. Families should not be placed in that position simply because the road has not been improved. This project would address several long-standing problems at once: drainage, erosion, dust, public health, school access, emergency access, and overall roadway safety. The residents who live along Castle Mountain Road have dealt with these issues for years, and paving the road would be a meaningful investment in the safety and well-being of our community. I respectfully ask that the Board of Supervisors approve the paving project for Castle Mountain Road and move forward with an improvement that will provide lasting benefits for the residents, families, and property owners in this area. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Craig Valley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Robin Schmidt. I live on Sycamore Ridge Road. I'm in the Piedmont District. So dear members of the board, we are residents of the Sycamore Ridge Road area and as well Swindler Hollow. Some neighbors with me today. We live along, two of us live along the unpaved actually all of us live along the unpaved section connecting Swindler Hollow and Old Hollow. You mentioned that the 6-year plan includes Sycamore Ridge, and I hope it also includes the upper part of Swindler Hollow. I sort of assume it does. Do you know, folks?
What?
The Sycamore Ridge, because the upper part of Swindler Hollow is also unpaved. So it seems to me those two would go together. I'm not really sure why one would be done without the other. The rest of the loop, the Old Hollow, nicknamed loop, is all paved. It's just the top portion that's unpaved. So I'm writing to express strong support for paving this portion of the road, primarily for reasons of safety, accessibility, and long-term maintenance. First and most importantly, safety. This section of the road includes steep grades and at least one sharp, partially blind curve. On gravel, these conditions create real hazards. We have personally witnessed a landscaper, I have personally witnessed a landscaper lose traction and slide backward down one of the hills, nearly going over the embankment. In another instance, while walking along the road, a vehicle came over a hill, attempted to slow, and fishtailed due to loose gravel, came within 1 or 2 feet of hitting my dog. These are not rare, and she was right by me, so that was also within about 5 feet of me. These are not rare or theoretical risks. They are predictable outcomes, steep terrain, outcomes of steep terrain combined with unstable surface. I also believe we have an increasing number of pedestrians. We have so many folks who walk the loop as part of either a daily or weekly regimen, and everyone watches out for the vehicles. There's speed, no matter whether there's gravel or pavement. It is a walk at your own risk. Second, emergency access and reliability. In adverse weather, rain, snow, or ice, this becomes significantly more difficult to navigate. That raises concerns about emergency response times and whether larger emergency vehicles can safely reach residents when needed. Residents have also experienced a temporary loss of access due to storm damage and culvert failure. So we have the 2 rivers and multiple crossings. On the one side, we just had the culvert fixed, somewhat fixed. It might not be complete, not sure. The other side, we've had flooding. So at one time, we had both access points, or both areas flooded, and Sycamore Ridge residents couldn't actually get down. That was temporary, though. But if the Old Hollow side does get flooded, then we're reliant on this gravel side, which is less predictable, especially with ice or heavy downpour. We had someone who washed their truck right off the culvert into the river. Third, infrastructure and maintenance realities. Gravel roads require frequent regrading. This is much what we just heard, which introduces issues such as washboarding, potholes, loose stones, and unintended widening of the road. Larger rocks often surface and can damage vehicles. Dust control treatments are temporary and must be reapplied. These represent ongoing reoccurring costs and disruptions. My house is right on the road within 30 feet. We also have another resident here who's pretty much right on the road, so we really feel the effect of the dust, especially when the school bus goes by. A properly paved road would reduce much of this repeated maintenance burden and provide a more stable, predictable surface. Fourth, quality of life and environmental impacts, also much what you just heard. Dust from the gravel road is a constant issue, especially for homes located close to the roadway. It affects air quality, coats vehicles, and impacts daily living. Additionally, during heavy rain, water runoff is not well managed. Water flows down the road and pools near homes. Most notably to me, in front of my house, I'm dealing with that pretty regularly and have had to replace stones, replace dirt. So hopefully that would get fixed with a paved road. So it causes erosion, requiring repeated repairs of yards and landscaping. A paved surface with proper drainage would help manage runoff more effectively. Finally, access for service and deliveries. Larger delivery vehicles often struggle to navigate this section of the road, particularly on the Swindler Hollow approach. This affects both convenience and the ability to receive essential services. GPS, yes, will you please wrap it up? Yes, we understand there are competing priorities across the county and appreciate the complexity of these decisions. However, given the combination of steep terrain, documented safety concerns, maintenance demands, and access issues, we believe paving this section of Sycamore Ridge Road and Swimmer Hollow is not just an improvement, it's a necessary step forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Foran. I reside at 69 Sycamore Ridge Road, just down from Robin. I won't repeat everything that she said. I agree with everything that she said. I'll just add a couple of things. My wife and I, being at the age that we are, we really are not interested in having emergency access like ambulances affected by unpaved surfaces that we often see in our area, reducing response times and that sort of thing. I can tell you that that area in the winter especially is difficult to get to under the best of circumstances, but when they're not paved and the ice is accumulating and we have those steep inclines and turns, it presents a rather significant danger. We fully understand that there are competing needs throughout this county, and I'm not here to try and place our needs above anybody else's. I just hope we were informed earlier that we were on the schedule. I hope we will remain on that schedule, and I appreciate your consideration of all of these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Karen Rubel and I live at 63 Castle Mountain Road. 25 years ago, my husband and I moved out here and built what we hope to be our forever home. At that time, we were told that the road would be taken care of as soon as there were 10 to 12 more homes built, and we believed it. At this time, there are many more homes than 10 to 12, and many more cars on the road as well. Last time I sat on the porch and counted, there were 25 to 27 just in a matter of 4 hours. So we have more homes, we have many more cars, but our road has never been changed. It is now just dirt. When we get rain, which is very seldom, it is a sea of mud. My husband and I are now in our 80s, and it does bring cause for us to be concerned about emergency vehicles. We have had to call them on several occasions, and it has been quite an effort to get them down the road and be able to turn into our homes. My husband suffers from COPD, emphysema, and congestive heart failure. So I think you can see that there are frequent calls to our emergency services. Due to the daily dust, he is no longer able to sit on the porch, sit on the deck, or work in his flower beds. This continuous dust bowl is relentless, and we need to put a stop to it. Delivery trucks, cars, and construction vehicles go down our road starting at 3:15 in the morning, and many times are still there coming down the roads at night. To be able to enjoy and stay in our forever home, we need help from the supervisors. We need our roads fixed so that we can stay there. Nursing homes are definitely not something that we are looking forward to at this point. So please consider paving at least part of Castle Mountain Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Barbara Anderson. I also live in Castle Mountain Road. I won't waste your time repeating everything my neighbors have said, but we would really, really appreciate if somebody would take and repair our roads because they definitely need to be paved. I mean, my porch and my car are covered constantly with dust. And parts of it are like washboard when you go over it. And it's just getting worse and worse, and we really need somebody to take a look at it and do something. And we would appreciate if y'all would consider putting a finger on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Taylor, Piedmont District. I'm here for my sister Carol. She's the one that got this Sycamore Ridge Road added to the list years ago. And I thought the great presentation on some things going on. I don't know if it was mentioned about the park. There's two accesses to the park, one on the Thornton side, one on the Piney side. And it does create some traffic going between the two. And it is got a steep hill. I've been riding it since I was a kid on the school bus. So it's pretty slick on that. It's not too much gravel on it. So, but we really appreciate you keeping it on the list. And looks like we're coming to the top of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Terry Dix with Stonewall Hawthorne District. Now, I know we're not supposed to ask questions here, but just because I'm just not paying as much attention as I used to, has the tax rate been set yet? Okay, so there's gonna be a two-part speech that's gonna last about 30 seconds. So I'm against any kind of tax rate increase, just for regressive tax. And right now, with the economy the way it is, and working class families really don't need another kick in the teeth with higher expenses. And so I'd be against the tax rate. The second thing is I'm a new member of the Castleton Fire Department, and so we hear about roads. And of course, I'm sure you all know where the Castleton Firehouse is, kind of out in Castleton. So every call we do that's south of the station, you have to go on Castle View Road. And that is a nasty, it's hilly, it's tight, it's washboards on a hill that's going up there. Part of it is paved and part of it is not. But just on behalf of the fire department, if there's any way that can get scheduled as a paved part, it would really help response times and getting people out on Castleton View Road. There you go. Thank you.
Can I make a comment on
You
a
can
particular road?
about the public, yep, VDOT 6-year plan particular.
I don't know if this is on the 6-year plan, and it's actually not an urgent issue for me, but I just got a question because I'm Rodney Kessner, living in Jackson District. In Get Brown Hollow, or the remaining part of Get Brown Hollow Road, I heard Pullman's Bluff is on the list. But that road connecting Get Brown Hollow to Harris Hollow, it's just a short piece of road. And I know nobody probably thinks about it too much because there's less than a handful of homes there. But it's really rough on those folks. And the reason I'm saying this is because my wife, I still manage a farm there for a friend of mine, a late friend of mine. And I promised him that I would manage as long as I could and keep it in his family as long as I possibly could. I know they tarred and chipped the road going to up Kaiser's Run. I feel like maybe that was kind of more done for the park than the residents. Maybe I'm off base, but that's just the way I feel. Just wondering if possibly, maybe that road could be put on the list at some point because she has power. His brother, who was an older gentleman, Mr. Michael Bean. My wife has power of attorney over him. We met with power of attorney over him, and we have had rescue squad have to come hauling away a few times. And so she has to travel up there, and for occasionally we do have to call a rescue squad for him still. He's got an intellectual disability, so she takes care of it. We own some property back out on the road as well, so like I said, I know that's been tar and chipped, and that's great, but I got a feeling that's more for the park. But just a question if maybe that could ever be put on the list. It's a short piece of road, you know what I'm talking about, Mr. Wizard. Yep. That's all.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the VDOT 6-year plan? Not seeing anyone in the courtroom, and there's definitely no one on Zoom, so we'll go ahead and close this public hearing, and I'll open it up to my peers on the board.
I was just moving my mic there.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off. I look like you're getting ready to talk there. I'll be brief and speak to Sycamore Ridge Road. I'm very familiar with that, and I think Mr. Taylor brought up two important points. Not that the other points weren't as equally as important, but with the streams on each side of that hollow, and I've been seeing in times of disaster and the rain getting up, or storms and what have you, and the washouts. You're just hoping the other side is functional, where you can get in and out of the hollow there. And Sycamore Ridge plays an important role. It is windy, and all the descriptions that Robin gave and the rest of the folks that live up there, it deserves to remain on the 6-year plan. Because it is a connector to each side of the hollow there. I rode up there the other day. It's been a while since I've been up there, and I just wanted to refamiliarize myself. And as much as many things that hasn't changed, a lot has changed with that road, and maybe not if you haven't traveled. And the other important part that Mr. Taylor brought was the park. You get a lot of folks who go to the park there, and there's pedestrian traffic. In fact, I saw a pedestrian there the other day. So I want to thank the folks from Sycamore Ridge Road for coming out, and I think it's a justified request, keeping it on the 6-year plan.
I'll just speak to several of these roads since they're in my district. So I did talk to some people who spoke in favor of the work on Horton Hollow Road. It's interesting, we had Turkey Bridge as our priority, and I didn't hear from anybody about that as a priority. So I'm not sure if we can move that down in a motion, or if that needs to.
Well, the roads that are on the current list and closest to the top may already have engineering done, and Ben might be able to let us know if Turkey Ridge Road. However, if you advertise to the world that you're going to change the priority Turkey Ridge, then you hear from a bunch of Turkey Ridge people. And so it kind of depends on what you're telling the public. We did put signs up on the first section of Turkey Ridge. We did put signs up on the second section. So I think who you prompt to come has a lot to do with how you're noticing what might change.
And so if we change this, would we have to re-advertise?
No, you would not. You could change the priority list adopted last year and move Castleton View or Sycamore Ridge above the first section of Turkey Ridge, which is the 0.8 miles from about where O'Bannon's Mill is, 0.8 miles towards the one-lane bridge. And the second section of Turkey Ridge, which is potentially could be added, is the next 0.8 miles to the bridge. So Turkey Ridge, the first 0.8 miles is funded in the plan today. The second 0.8 miles is not funded, nor are Castle Mountain, Horton Hollow, or O'Bannon's Mill. And if I can explain that differently, let me know.
Well, I prefer not to change what we've already adopted. That's right.
There's no rhyme or order to the potential sections that you could add. Turkey Ridge just happens to be at the top because I may have sorted them based on the time, how often they've come up in the past. So Turkey Ridge has been on a list of potentially the second section of adding it to the plan multiple times, and it hasn't advanced. Others have come ahead of it, like Castleton View last time. I think Sycamore Ridge even was added. Anything after the first Turkey Ridge section, you can see Sycamore Ridge and Castleton View were added instead of adding another section of Turkey Ridge. I'm not sure if I'm making it clear.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, I have a motion in mind, but I didn't want to cut off any conversation.
Gary, I think we had a discussion, Mr. Kessler mentioned that very odd section of Good Run Hollow Road, which is, I don't know, maybe I should give responsibility to Mr. Settle because it splits our voting districts, but I did inquire about that, I think, in the past with Mr. Nesbitt, and it seems like without diluting the current list or the road sections that are in waiting to join the list, maybe there's another way to address that through maintenance paving.
Well, it's possible if they're particularly difficult maintenance sections, but a few years ago, the board did advertise that section, and we put signs up on that section. In the public, those that came to speak was pretty well split on whether it was a good idea.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Similarly, the conversation about Swindler Hollow Road, that section is not included in the plan. And I think the concern of many is that when you complete a loop with hard surface, then you're inviting your motorcycle friend joyriders to come and tour your loop when they're out here in our fine county. And if you leave a little gap of gravel, that tends to shut that down. And I think that's been some of the thought pattern in the past, why we have some of these sections that still have a gap.
Yeah, but, I mean, I now recall that there were some, and Mr. Kessler pointed out well, that there aren't that many houses back there. I do worry about Michael, and getting to him, because that section of road in particular gets very washboarded. But what I can commit here is that I'll talk to BDOT about what maybe could be done around Timmy's old house, and just to make it safer for Michael.
Yeah, and it could be a project, a secondary road, rural rustic project could be envisioned on only a portion of the remaining loop gap, and not the entire gap.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can I just dovetail on what Supervisor Whitson said earlier? I had a conversation with Ben with regards to Get Brown Hollow Road and some traffic safety potential issues there. If you'd like, I could tackle that as well.
Sure. Since it splits our district, let's go in it together.
I got it together.
That's good. Thanks.
These roads are not in my district, so I really don't have, I mean, we've heard from the public. Do you have anything you'd like to?
No, they are,
I love my road in Jackson District. That's great.
So logistically, let me just clarify, there's $684,000 not programmed right now that could be put toward one or more segments of road. In this case, none of these segments exceed $684,000, and VDOT allows a road to hang off the tail end of the plan and not be fully funded. So the resolution is pulled together with a couple of blanks, and a motion could be crafted to add 2 segments, pretty much any 2 segments, and while they would exceed $684,000, they would be acceptable form for the resolution.
We'll spend the money.
It just means that next year, you only accumulate $300,000 or $400,000 a year. So the next year, we might not even hold a public hearing because there just won't be any capacity to add things. Like last year, you didn't hold a public hearing. You have to do it at least every other year.
All right, well, so I moved that we adopt the provided resolution adopting the secondary 6-year plan and construction priority list with both segments of Castle Mountain Road incorporated into the provided blanks. So I think that would take us, if my math's correct, well above 680,000.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This is roll call.
Resolution.
That's a resolution. Yes, please.
All right, so we've got Castle Mountain Road, both number 2 and number 3 on our list. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, so with these 2, we recommend it to be next in line. Is the list going to be moved up as presented in the information we have here? I'm looking at Sycamore Ridge, Is there any way to move that? Move right up here, maybe that's a.
Right, so
Right there.
the current section of Fort Hollow Road that's on the plan that was recently graded and recently tar chipped, that's the top priority, and it's nearly done. It might receive some more tar and chip next year.
Right.
So the next road is already in design, and it's gonna start pretty soon, is Pullins Bluff Road.
Okay.
After that is the section of Turkey Ridge, 28 miles of Turkey Ridge, then Sycamore Ridge. And that's the order that they were placed on the priority list over multiple years.
Understood, that's.
So they will, as Horton Hollow is totally done, they just kind of advance forward.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Settle?
Aye.
Mr. General?
Aye.
Ms. Conant?
Aye.
Mr. Whitson?
Aye.
And I also. All right. Anyone that's not here for anything else, this is a good time to pop out if you want to.
We like having you here.
Thank you. What else do I say?
Dustin, hey, thanks a lot. Dustin Brown. Thanks.
All right. The next public hearing is the ordinance amendment, RCC Chapter 151, taxation. And is that you, Mr. Courier?
Yes. What is the house?
That's these graphs.
Right. You told me about that.
I did.
The Board of Supervisors at your recent meeting authorized staff to advertise a public hearing to amend Chapter 151 of your county code. Chapter 151 is titled Taxation. It covers a number of things. This public hearing is advertised to amend 4 of the articles. The first article is Wills and Administration Tax. Review of historically adopted ordinances reveal that that all of the previously passed ordinances weren't codified within our current code. So this aims to fix that. The second item articles regarding land use valuation and the taxation program. And in this case, it is proposing to increase the application fee and revalidation fee for the land use taxation program from $60 to $140. And for application, it also tax on 25 cents per acre. The third article is the food and beverage tax. This is commonly referred to as the meals tax. It would propose to increase from 4% to 5%. Lastly, the last article subject to amendment is the transient occupancy tax, often called the lodging tax, proposing to change that section, increasing the tax rate from 4% to 10%. The ordinance itself is attached with materials and available. It is provided with lines. The Board of Supervisors could adopt the ordinance as presented, or you could potentially adopt it to omit changes to certain lines, as long as they're coherent and read appropriately. So you can adopt up to this or less than this as proposed.
Thank you.
The public hearing is properly advertised in the newspaper and be appropriate to hear from the public.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I'll open the public hearing for the ordinance amendment, Chapter 151, taxation. Again, that's a 5-minute per person, please. Anyone wishing to speak, come up, give us your name and your district. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm one of the few that's going to get hit 3 ways with the new taxes that are proposed, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Where are you, where are you?
I'm sorry, I'm Rodney Kessler from
Just know, yeah, 40.
I've been married over 43 years. I won't introduce myself to you later. Thank you, man. You're eating on my time.
Get ready, Don.
And there again, I'm not worried about my wife and I. You know, we're old enough, we can absorb this and we'll muddle through. I'm looking more toward the future generations.
Yeah.
As far as the land use tax, I really think, okay, it's a small increase, and, you know, most people's not gonna complain too much about it, but maybe. Our government's growing, we're hiring more and more assistants and everything left and right, population dropped. Maybe we need to hire somebody to start looking at fraud. I have a piece of property that falls under conservation easement, or forestry, and I know for a fact that there's some fraud in this county when it comes to land use. I'm not gonna name names, but I could. And maybe somebody needs to be hired or appointed to look into what pieces of land are actually in land use and are abiding by the rules. Secondly, on the meals and lodging taxes, I just talked to Mr. Whitson about this before the meeting, and evidently we do not have a BPOL in the county, as far as like wineries and such go. That'd be a good place to start, because every time they rent their venue, say for a private wedding or a corporate event, look at they would have to pay full tax. That's not tax exempt under the agricultural statute. So we could be getting anywhere from 4 to 10% off each one of those deals. And that would be from probably outside of the county, because that's where most of the people come from. So maybe we need to think about adopting a BPOL for the wineries and places like that. And we could draw some tax revenue from it. Just some thoughts, just some ideas. Just trying to come up with new ways.
Yep.
Trying to come up with new ways other than the little man. Remember the little man. They built this town. Remember, I just took you on a tour around the county. And Mr. Sutton do the same thing, I know. He remembers the ski lodge. He remembers Skippy's store. He remembers the 4th of July celebration parade here. He remembers the Black Kettle Restaurant, motel owned by Sinclair's in Englefield. He remembers the soft serve ice cream stand right by the old mill. He remembers the drive-in theater at Hillsdale. He remembers the tractor dealership at Hillsdale. He remembers Hackney store that was Walmart before Walmart was ever heard of. He can tell you that as well as I can. Am I wrong? And one by one, the little man has dried up and went away. And these were all places that the people that lived in the county could actually go and do with their families. Like I said, my wife Donna and I, we've been married for over 43 years. We went to the Black Kettle Restaurant owned by Mr. Sinclair on a date a time or two when we were teenagers before we even were married. Now imagine that, 2 teenagers that could afford to go on a date and go out for a meal right here in this county. It ain't happening now. It ain't happening. So just some food for thoughts, and maybe some ways that, you know, we can look at drawing more revenue from some of these places, you know. The inn's beautiful, all the little shops they built, it's beautiful. But I don't think we're maximizing our full potential of what we could get out of them or the wineries as far as tax revenue. Just remember the little man. Maybe a jog down memory lane for you. Thank you again for speaking, and thank the 5 of you for what you do for the county.
Thank you. Thank you.
Carrie, 17 months. Thank you, sir. I'm one of those little men. And I appreciate you saying all that. I recall last year we were at the same situation, having the same discussion. And the resolution from the final vote in June was that we were going to examine things like land use to determine whether there was ways to get money out of that instead of taxing the little guys who suffer through this. I'm going to tell you, I just did the math for the last 4 months of my cafe, and in January it lost $19,000. In February it lost $7,000. You know, those are slow months for us, but this is a tough county to be a business owner in. And I was I was encouraged by the discussion last year where we talked about looking at land use. I don't know that we've seen a single dollar come from that discussion. I tell you, the inn just posted its Alice Walker suite for $2,100 a night. We know they don't pay a single dime for that roof at the school they're looking for, and there's no school in Little Washington for them to pay towards. It is incredibly frustrating for a little business owner to see my neighbors who I compete against, and in fact, Hayfield directly competes against me, the new business coming in, who's going to have a 2.5% advantage over everything I do, just because it's in that little town. So, you know, I was hoping that we had a whole year to try to figure out what we were going to do rather than start taxing us again. I'm hoping that we will continue the discussion. I do need to clarify something. Olivia and I are sure. We're not voting on the tax increase tonight. I thought it was in June that we do that, in the beginning of June. I mean, that is a bit of a concern to many of us because we've just begun the discussion with the community. As you guys know, I've been a little busy with going to festivals, so I have not had this conversation. So I would hope we could actually delay this conversation so we can engage the business community that actually has an impact on this. This is a bit of a surprise to a guy who actually does pay attention when he can. This is very much a surprise. We might vote on this tonight. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Madam Chair, if I could just, if I could just pose a question and maybe we could direct this to Mr. Curry just on deadlines for adoption of a new tax ordinance, et cetera, so we're clear on timing as just raised, if we could, just so that.
Well, it's right for consideration tonight. And of course, your budget deliberations are dependent potentially on revenue, so they really are a package consideration. Last year, the board opted not to adopt the meals lodging changes as were included in the public hearings, and they recommended budget and the advertised budget. The net result of that was to go into the current fiscal year FY26 with a large revenue hole that was never filled with anything other than savings, fund balance. So I would strongly encourage you not to do that again and adopt the overall budget the same in tax rates the same time you contemplate adopting.
My question was more not about a specific tax rate. My question in response to Mr. Sutton, because I want to be clear in my mind, make sure we all understand the statutory deadline under which we're operating for adoption of the budget and the related tax rates, whether on real estate or meals and lodging. That's what I'm seeing.
The budget generally has a deadline of May 15th. However, because the state's dragging their feet, it could be later. The practical deadline is the requirement of your staff and treasurer's office, commissioner revenue, to turn to the next year and be able to prepare bills, et cetera, for the next year. Also, we must notify the state 30 days in advance of changing the lodging tax rate. So there's a lot of different pieces that come together because they advertise across the state, and I think it's part of their effort to get intermediaries to properly bill the Airbnbs of the world.
This one was held June 2nd last year.
Right, so because last year, I know there's a lot of exchange happening here. Last year, the decision to adopt the budget happened a month before a decision to adopt these rates. It was very awkward to try to have that after the fact and put the board in a very bad situation to adopt a budget and then a month later consider whether you're going to change these tax rates.
Right.
So this year, they're presented to you all at the same time and advertised earlier for public hearing than they were last year.
Thank you.
So they align.
Sorry, I apologize. I just want to make sure that we're clear on the facts.
Yep. And we're still in public hearing, so, yes.
again. I'm Olivia Noble, owner of Property Ordinary in Piedmont. I would reiterate what Mr. Sutton said over here that I'm quite shocked to find out that this is the meeting to agree upon these tax increases. This was not advertised that long ago. We are all very busy business owners, and it is not a lot of time for us to come together and give you our comments. So if there's any way to delay the discussion about this, I think it would be, there are a number of people who I know were not able to be at this meeting, were not aware that this meeting was the meeting in which we were making this decision, and might be quite frustrated that they were not able to give comment on this. So I don't know if that's a possibility, but I will just put my vote in favor of allowing those people to have their voices heard. That being said, I'm coming here as one of the very few business owners significantly affected by the proposed lodging tax. Despite what the proposal suggests, this lodging tax is not a tax on the tourists, it's a tax on the small business owners that run lodging establishments. We all consider the prices of our rooms very carefully. We consider many factors, which includes the cost of doing business, our willingness of customers to pay for a certain price, and the total cost of the room inclusive of taxes. Our customers are savvy. They are people who are thinking about the total cost coming out of their pocket. They are not just looking at the room rate. And we all know that costs for everything have gone up this year: food, labor, and sewer costs, gas, to name a few. Consequence of these raising costs is that we all need to be raising our prices to match those costs. And if this tax increase were to go through, it would make it very difficult or impossible for us to raise our prices. I know last week there was a comment made about, what's $15 to a room, and maybe what's $15 to a room, but we need those $15 to help cover those costs. We cannot be raising costs $30, $40 on people. That is where decisions are made, and that is the potential for us to a hit against our visitors. So as a result, the consequence of this tax increase will be that as business owners, we are unable to raise our own rates. We will shoulder the majority of this tax burden, not the tourists. I understand that we want to try to find ways to tax the tourists, but as small business owners with a limited inventory, we are not able to just absorb these costs the way that other counties in our area. I appreciate the charts that were shared last week. Other counties have Marriotts, Motel 8s, Holiday Inns. Those are national chains that can manage their profits and losses across your nationwide portfolio. And we just do. I have 5 rooms. I cannot make that balance work the way that they can. I would also argue that last week the board said these tax increases do represent sharing the pain, spreading the burden. And as there's only 4 lodging establishments in the county that are affected by this that are not in Little Washington. And that's not including the Airbnbs, but there are 4 businesses who have lodging as a primary part. And I will say we are the only business whose primary business is lodging. So I fail to see how this is sharing the pain. And I would just, again, I appreciate this gentleman over here looking out for the little man among us. I would also, it's a point we brought up last week, but I really want to underline it. We are at a very competitive disadvantage with our neighbors in Little Washington, as Mr. Sutton said. If this tax goes through, we will be at a 7.5% gap between us and them. On a $300 a night room, that's a $20 gap between us and them for one night. And we also discussed wanting to get people to stay here longer, stay more nights. That will be increased over and over again each time they come. And I just think that is a significant disadvantage on the same rate room. And so we argue wholeheartedly that Little Washington could pay up more, and that's I agree that that's something we can do, but the point in bringing this up is the 7.5% gap that we will have to our greatest competitors next door, and that's revenue that's not coming back to this county. Okay, my last point, I have 40 seconds left. Some of the additional money raised as a result of this tax increase is going to a tourism promotion budget. It is not going to support all of these important budget items that have been brought up. And currently this budget, as I read it, has an $80,000 surplus, and I see no proposed plan for what to do with that money. And Mr. Whitson said last week, we must never chase significant additional revenue just for the sake of chasing it. I find it difficult to understand how this is not that when there's an $80,000 surplus and no real plan to action with that money. I really love being here. This is a great county. And I just hope you'll take these points into consideration, at the very least, delay the conversation to allow other people to have their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, well, hi, my name is Brooke Farrell, I'm from the Wakefield District. I did not come here to talk about this tonight, but I do own a hospitality location in Roanoke, Virginia. This would devastate me. My profit on a room is $19, $15, $14. Devastating. I find it shameful that you guys would do this to the small businesses in this county. I'm here to talk about opening another small business. I'm on the cusp of, should I tear this building down in Flint Hill? Or should I put $1.2 million into it that I will never get back? And you know what I'm about to walk out of here and do? Pull my building permit and say, let's tear it down. Because why would I ever want to open a business in this county? I have a ton of land use. I'm not a farmer. This gentleman right here is 100% correct. That's where you get your money. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anita Ramos, Hampton District. As you all know, I'm one of the people that supports this raise on lodging. This will affect not 4 places, but some number of the 70+ properties in the county that have a right to have lodging. At this point, I think right now, I think the last we heard was over 30 properties were being used as Airbnbs, and all of them will be in the same boat. And as I also mentioned at a prior meeting, I was just down in Rappahannock, and on top of what I paid to stay at a hotel, there was an additional tax listed of over 11%. The money that we get for this kind of thing, as I said this afternoon, is going to go for the kind of advertising that Madison County is doing in a major magazine in Northern Virginia. This is the kind of tourism information that we need. We need to attract people to want to come here, and more people need to know that we exist too. And I see this repeatedly in new magazines like this, where other counties are advertising themselves big time. And a couple of years ago, Page County did a huge thing on TV, touting the things that they had available for the public to come and enjoy. So I'd like to be in the same boat as they're in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Hunt, Jackson District. I made comments at the April 27th meeting, and I just thought I would reiterate my points for the public record because I don't believe that there was any video recording there. I attend a lot of meetings, and I know it's hard to keep up. You can spend a lot of time educating yourself, and I understand sometimes there's confusion about what rates go to advertising, what rates are spent in other ways. We have kicked the can on capital projects, and at some point we have to swallow hard and address some of these issues. I'm in land use, and while no one wants to pay more, I support the increase on the land use validation fee. It's a small amount in reality to help keep as many people as possible stay in ag use in our county and keep our county rural. This actually helps keep taxes lower than in many surrounding counties. When you have more residents, you will have more demand for services, you will have more costs. This is going to drive tax increases. We talked about this before. We cannot build our way out of this. We will forever lose what attracts people to this county, what we have here. There were comments at last time, and I'll reiterate it again. You know, other counties have what we call chased revenue. They've gone to data centers. There are consequences for every choice and every action that we make. I don't want to pay any more taxes than I have to. I am not wealthy. I understand that I can absorb it, and maybe there are other people that can't, and maybe there are ways to help equalize that for people for their real estate rates. But I do support the meals and lodging rate increase because we are not, I would appreciate if maybe staff or the board could explain the dedicated tourism component that is playing a role in this decision-making of going from 4 to 10, because we cannot just take that and put it to the general fund. There are constraints on how that's used, and I'm not sure everybody understands that. We are a tourist destination, and visitors who come here are enjoying the beautiful county that we have, and having them pay a little bit more to help support what we have here so that we can keep our way of life is important. I am not a business owner for lodging or a restaurant, and so I do hear and appreciate the comments of those people who are engaged in that, because I don't walk in their shoes. And so I will defer to the difficulties they speak of, and I'm not insensitive to that. But the school board worked hard this year to have equal funding. Supervisor Comer, I'm sure will make her three-legged stool comment, because that's a very apt analogy. We talked about paving roads and what delivery trucks are doing. I'll just tell you, I'm an oddball. I do not own a smartphone, never have. My plan is never to do that. I don't do any banking online. I don't buy anything online. So when you talk about damage to roads, that costs money, whether it's your state tax dollars fixing those roads, whether it's your... I'm just pointing out, sometimes we'll stand up and ask for things that are reasonable, that benefit us, but look at the other side of that coin. That's a cost. And so when you purchase from something that's going to come in a delivery truck and it's going to come down your road and create that dust, I'm just saying, think about consequences have actions. And at some point, we got to swallow hard. We can't have it all. And I don't know what the proper answer is, but last year, you all considered a meals and lodging tax and then didn't do it. And we had to go to the general fund and take reserves to fund the budget. So I'm asking you not to do that again. And I know you're in a no-win position. I feel for all of you up there, because you're going to get crabbed at no matter what you do. But I recognize that I'm going to have to pay a little more for my validation fee when I go out to eat in the county. And by the way, shop local, stay local, consider the choices when you buy things, because it does have ramifications for the business owners here and for all of us, whether it's your gravel roads or not. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that is all for the public hearing, because there's no one on Zoom. So I'll go ahead and close it and open it up to the board.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna jump right into, what does this pay for? We've been asked, last year, we were asked to find another way. And we were asked, when we were asked to find another way, that was real estate taxes and whatnot. And then, of course, we heard about meals and lodging last year, and we were asked again, hey, why is the town, the inequity is pointed out? And so, yeah, we agreed. We're gonna give this a year. In the meantime, I know that it's very small. It's such a small amount of money, but I think it makes a big impact. I sat here that night and said, I'm gonna lean into tourism. I'm gonna recognize that you all need, that's what we have. Now this year we've been asked to find another way. We've been asked to stay rural, and we've been asked to lean into our asset, which is tourism. Tonight we've been asked, what is that money paying for? Well, our visitor center costs about $27,000.
We have the campaign that I just mentioned was a very small, teeny tiny, modest amount. It is a $10,000 commitment. It's a local, it's a targeted, I'm gonna be very careful. It is a targeted and very, very strategic digital advertising campaign. We advertise a little bit with Purely Piedmont. We support Sperryfest. We support the farm tour. We support our chamber. We support the RAC programs. We support the Civil War Trails marketing and maintenance support, which I'll pause right there. We are the only county in our immediate area that the Civil Wars Trail, they mention us by name. Lots of other, in some of their print marketing. I remember him telling us that last year, that we get a little extra from them. That is a big draw out here. Another huge chunk of that money pays for security at Fatterstep, at the 4th of July events, at our Christmas parade, at the Rough Ride, at the Amosville Carnival. You know, we have a very lean law enforcement department. And so when we have these events, you know, you start looking into overtime. It gets expensive. So these tourism dollars help with that. You're right. Right now we will have a surplus that is undetermined. However, I already mentioned our campaign, our tourism campaign, very modest. It's $10,000 does not buy a lot at all. So I'm sure that will be something that we consider over the next several months. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to pay someone who knows what they're doing about tourism? You do a great job. But I share all of that just to say it is not a surplus that we take lightly. And I think the use of that money, I look at it and we keep it local and we apply it to things that are really near and dear to the hearts of many in Rappahannock. You know, the Christmas parade, the Amosville Carnival. I mean, those things are things that bring people far and wide to our county. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
No, just on public advertising and the timeline. Mr. Sutton, you obviously saw us labor a lot last year over the meals and lodging tax rate, and Ms. Comer came around at the end, and at least I was grateful. Not everyone was, but and we did dip into cash, and we're in a good cash position as a county. We lack any debt. We haven't raised property taxes but one time in 6 years. This year, thanks to Ms. Comer, standing firm on school funding in part, we had a very accelerated and relatively pain-free budget discussion with the school, which will put us on a faster track, if I'm correct, in terms of overall budget consideration, adoption, tax rates, et cetera. The point being that we are on a faster track this year, or perhaps an easier one, and so I think you are caught off guard, but I just want to make it clear that we have advertised our budget and our tax rates properly. So
just look at the budget schedule, it actually has June 1st as the date in which I expected to be the date in which the vote was.
And we can.
And the fact that there's two businesses.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I can't think. This morning, I had someone sit in my house for 3 hours, and I was happy to meet with them about the courthouse. There are people who are I'm speaking now, and I'm
here.
Okay. So I sat for 3 hours and talked about the courthouse, and there are people who are saying to me, that they're unaware of our courthouse deliberations and why we can't renovate this courthouse. My point is that we do our very, very best to get the word out about things. I've been very outspoken about the town of Washington. I've talked repeatedly and over about the need for the town to show up and share revenue, and I'm grateful for your strong statement tonight in this regard. And I'm also grateful to the Governor Hopkins Ordinary for standing up and saying that it's an inequitable situation. We need more input like that. I don't want to do anything in terms of voting schedule or decision-making that precludes the ability of other business owners to come and weigh in. And if you just give me an opportunity, I'd like to talk to my colleagues, Mr. Curry, about what that schedule looks like. I want to afford everyone an opportunity to weigh in. I want to hear, because hopefully I'll hear more about the town of Washington and the inequitable situation we find ourselves in. All that said, we do our very best to get the word out. So I don't want to concede this idea that we have somehow caught you all off guard. We haven't, and it's been advertised, and we've had public hearings on the budget. So I hope that we can find a way to hear from more businesses. I think it's reasonable. But if my colleagues and I decide tonight to vote, that's what we're going to do. I prefer not to, and I, for one, would also prefer not to raise the lodging tax rate to 10%. This is the key point I want to make. It is hard for me, just like it's hard for you, to sit here and consider taxing county businesses when we're not figuring out a way to secure more revenue from the town. And so I'm in the same position as I was last year. During the interim period, I've continued to be outspoken. And you weren't here at our afternoon meeting, but Mr. Janot put forward some questions that go to the key fundamental issue we're facing with the town, and that's contribution to the county bottom line. And so I appreciate his support, and I think he raised some very valid points for consideration, so I'm hopeful that we won't be sitting here a year from now still complaining about the unfair and inequitable situation vis-a-vis the town. As a matter of principle, I have a hard time swallowing going from 4% tax rate to town on lodging. My question for Ms. Jewell is, if you could just walk me through the numbers, if we're going from 4% to 5%, 4% to 5% on the lodging rate, and 4%, what would the revenue forgone figure be?
Every percent on the meals is $90,000 in revenue. Every percent on lodging is $59,000 in revenue.
Okay, so if we went from 4 to 5, and I understand the implications for tourism promotion, but if we went from 4 to 5, we would forgo basically 59 at 4 is $240,000. Is that correct?
But there's restricted funds for that.
Correct. If you went from 4 to 5, you're just talking about on the lodging.
Yeah.
If you went from 4 to 5, yeah.
I'm just saying 5 and go to 5 on meals and lodging.
There.
Yeah, there we go.
I just want to know the number.
This is just showing the differences in lodging.
That's if the meals stayed at 4 the whole way.
But that would be a fixed change. So you can see the two different colors of the bar. Restricted for tourism is orange, general purpose is blue. So you can see what happens if you go, right now we're at 4%, you can see how that is. If you go to 5, you actually reduce your general non-restricted revenue, because that would be if you separated the two. If you stay at 5 and 5, that would change a little bit. Then when you go up, then it gradually you catch back up to the unrestricted revenue, but you add to that restricted portion, which stays the same on top of that.
So maybe it's a tough calculation on the fly, but from a balanced budget perspective, if let's say we landed at 5 on meals and 5 on lodging, where would that leave us? In terms of,
It'd be about 200,000.
is that what, yeah, because what I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around is the restricted portion of it, yeah.
Yeah, and so you would be looking for expenditures to cut.
Right.
Or property taxes, that's 1 cent on the.
We've already advertised the tax rate. You can't adopt any higher than what you advertised.
Okay.
Still, twice it was mentioned that we have a surplus.
The mention of surplus was in the tourism fund, which is, I would call it surplus, it's unallocated, so that is restricted. This orange bar that is restricted can only be used for tourism purposes, which I think the board would be investing it in those, you know, how do you get people here? Where do you target advertising? How do you get them to stay more than one night? And so that could be partially for hourly wage for somebody to help with that, where to place ads, the whole student match of that would be restricted to use for tourism only.
And then I wanted to circle back on and I don't want to speak for anyone else, but, you know, regardless of our advertising requirements and regardless of the fact that we can't always get everyone to pay attention at the right time, out of respect for folks here tonight and those who are not here, I just want to be really clear on what our drop dead date is for adoption of our budget and tax rates, accounting for all of the required advance notice to the state, et cetera.
So the calendar, the budget calendar was adopted last year. It's been attached to every single meeting that you've had.
Yep.
It includes these dates that are shown here. May 4th is your first opportunity to adopt the budget. It's 7 days after the public hearing you had for the budget and tax rates last Monday. May 11th is another date that is on the schedule that you could meet again and consider the budget. Maybe there's information to be gathered between now and then that would help inform your decision. May 13th is yet again another date which is selected to be in advance of the May 15th statutory deadline for the school budget.
Correct.
Our recommendation is that you adopt the entire budget at one time, not the school budget, and then the county budget. You end up with issues like you did last year where you're trying to fill holes and you got nothing to fill it with. But if you were to adopt only the school budget, you could then hold out to June 1st and use your next regular meeting to adopt the rest of the budget that you didn't adopt. But that is putting a lot of pressure on the treasurer and commissioner of revenue, who then turn to get the bills out. And the sooner they get the bills out, the lower your cash dips at your low point in the year.
Good, thanks for walking me through that. That's all I have.
I appreciate you guys for coming in and talking, and I would echo what Keir said. There is a huge inequality in the way you're competing with businesses here in the town, and we are doing everything we can to resolve that. It's not fair, and it's disappointing that nobody's here representing them to say, you know, why they feel like that is fair. So agreed 100%. I do want to speak about the land use taxation. We had an extensive conversation with Mary Graham and who's the, you know, in charge of that here in the county. You know, it'd be great if we could hire a team of people to go investigate the fraud in the county. It would be impossible. The best way to address that is for citizens like you guys to call and say, hey, this person said they're doing this, they're not. I see what they're doing. I've been on the other end of those calls before. You don't know who made the call. I've always said, who called you to complain? That's private. And so the only way that we can resolve this is for each of us as citizens to be willing to say, hold on a minute, they're taking tax money from me. They're cheating the county. They're taking money out of our pockets, and we've got to be willing to call and do that. So I suggest that we've got to get that message out, you know, in a stronger way. We will have an opportunity. There will be a revalidation next year.
as part of the general reassessment.
Or sorry, reassessment next year. There will be conversations about land use coming up. That's the single thing that we can do the best is, I think right now is to say, hey, I know where there's problems, I'm gonna call them and talk about that.
My wife actually did that in the office down there.
Yeah, but I didn't talk to the right person, which was hard.
And she pretty much said the same thing you did, there's really nothing we can do about it. Even named the name.
Well, let's talk.
Just saying, I mean, I don't know how widespread it is. I'm just saying,
Well, sometimes what we think is fraud might be if somebody makes hay, they check the boxes. You know what I'm saying? If somebody says
they got cattle on there,
and they didn't.
You know that there's a required head per acre. And there isn't, and you know it for a fact, that's fraud.
Yeah, well, that's the opportunity we have is to call them.
That's tax evasion is what that is.
Yep.
Straight up.
But it's not possible when we talk about the budget if we have hired a team of people to.
I understand. It was just more or less an observation, that's all.
I feel the same way though. So, I think those were the only 2 points I had. We definitely can understand the pain. I wish there was an easier way to do this. You know, there's, from our perspective, if we could levy a meals and lodging tax here in the town, that's what we would do, I think. I'm going to speak for all of my colleagues here. I think that's what we would do. We can't. I think we're trying to address that. I encourage you to go listen to some of the afternoon session we had. I think we're trying to address a few different cost things there. We can't keep going back to real estate taxes. You know, that's what we hear is you know, if we keep going back to that, you know, we're making it more difficult for the people that are living here in the county. I think the idea of addressing the, you know, the winery has a strong lobby. Our hands are tied on what we can and can't do.
So go after the little guy?
You get the BPOL.
And so if there are creative ways we can do that for events and weddings, that's what we want to do. But our hands are tied in so many ways.
I understand.
And we turn around and say, well, you know, and at the same time, we have costs that are coming, you know, real costs that are coming with fire and rescue and EMS and this courthouse, and we have serious costs that are coming. So.
Mr. Suttle?
Yeah, good points. I was gonna bring up, Ms. Graham, and if you don't know, we had Ms. Graham come here, just a couple months ago. And we talked about land use and potential abuse of that. And just won't repeat what John said, but he laid it out very clearly what our ask was and what we could do to help her and her office identify folks that are not complying with the land use regulations. It was a quite lengthy discussion and it was enlightening and I think, and I don't know, I would defer to our senior members here, but I don't remember having the Commissioner of Revenue come and talk about land use specifically. It was very enlightening and Ms. Graham did a great job and was very open in wanting to know. Stop by, see her, give her a call. So I don't know when that happened, Rodney, you know, when it doesn't make any difference, really.
On the record, I'm 100% behind what she said. I'm 100%. I've got land and land use also.
Right. But
so I'm for just doing it the right way.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I think that's what we all want. We're living in the real world, and there probably are some out there that need some attention. So this body here did ask for that briefing, and I thought it was very productive, and I think it's eye-opening, and it's continuing the discussion in a lot of our meetings. And of course, Carrie, my district, Carrie's very informative. He and I have had a chance to meet on a lot of topics, a few topics. So I appreciate your comments and your sincerity. But the one thing I will say with regards to, I didn't know about the meetings or this was going to be voted on tonight. I'm looking through this over. I lost count, and this is not counting the school board / board supervisors joint meetings, 15 meetings. All of those are advertised, and you're right. The June 1st does say regular meeting, adopt county budget, tax rates, and appropriations if needed. But if you go back to May 4th, it says action, discussion of the budget. So
With
we're,
respect, 2 of us are sitting here, but there's about 30 others who are not.
yeah, and that's my point is I wish that we use the avenues that are afforded to us to get the message out, either post it. I would say I've been amazed at the amount of energy is put on our BoardDocs and that's accessible to the county residents for scheduling. And every piece of business that we do, frequently asked questions, facts. I mean, sometimes you can get inundated with too much information and you lose the important things. Like having the right people here to discuss budget. My point being is there's been an extraordinary effort to make sure that we have provided access to our citizens. That's all I have, Madam Chair. I much like here, have thought, what would the tax rate produce with regards to lodging if it was reduced from 10 to 7, 6, or what have you. And I pulled up that slide that Mr. Curry had earlier today, just a few minutes ago. I pulled it up earlier today or this morning, thinking about that very question, because it's a big jump, there's no question about it. And the previous meetings, and this has been said many times, and you've heard tonight, about just kicking the can down the road. Quite frankly, to be honest, this body has kicked the can down the road over the years. It's not one specific board session or group of supervisors. I think they were working within a tremendous amount of stress to keep their taxes low, find ways of just getting by, not having a debt service, keeping some cash flow available. The next thing you know, we creep up, we need a new courthouse, we need a roof on the school that's needed a roof for 4 or 5 years. And I didn't say this, I think Mr. Janot, one of our school board judges, said, we're better than this. So where does that lead us with all of these needs? They're not wants, these are needs. This is our infrastructure that we own, that we've got to preserve for the next generation of grandkids. Ms. Kessler, you talked about them at the last meeting. And so I could go on and on and on. It's where do you catch up at? And everybody who is, we try to spread the pain as much as we can. And you're right. When you hear that, it doesn't feel like you feel like you're getting all the pain, probably. I get that piece of it. There's a lot of forethought that went into to get to this point. And schools held to the level funding. And it's like, there's no way we're going to be able to do that. But this board, and primarily our folks, our tenured folks here, put the pressure on. And you can find ways to do that. So, that's all I have.
Thank you. Did you have something?
I did. I just want to interject because I have 3 of them in my district. I do want to speak to the wineries. We'll certainly explore. We can look at that. I do like innovative ways and things. We can look into that. But I feel like it should be stated and on the record that our wineries do pay taxes. They pay meals and sales taxes. They pay sales tax on the purchase of wine and beer on premises and off. And if they are selling prepared food, they are subject to the meals tax. Of course, they're paying real estate taxes. So I just don't want it confused that our wineries are getting a complete free ride. If a winery brings in a food truck, it is the food truck's responsibility to register for and collect all sales tax. So again, there are 3 award-winning wineries in Jackson. So I did, and it was something that I looked into after our last meeting. I wanted to make sure that, I understood what they were paying and what they were contributing in the way of taxes, because we do know that they are a draw to our county. So that's all I was gonna add.
Great. As far as I'm concerned, watching what's going on in surrounding counties and budgets that are being adopted, there are surrounding counties raising their taxes what we would think is considerable when they already have industry, they already have other businesses to actually supplement their need. And what they're doing is trying to take care of the thousands of people that they have that we don't have here, thank goodness. I'm glad we stick around the 7,400 range. But we have expenses that, as Mr. Settle said, are not nice to have. We're not putting in a swimming pool, although Culpeper's got a beautiful one coming. But these are dollars that we need to spend to take care of the buildings that have been here for longer than any of us, and the schools. I mean, you don't want people going to work and having rain on their head. I'm sad that it took us this long to get to a capital improvement plan, but I'm very thankful that we had Bonnie Jewell in the position to do it, because you came from the Stotsy world, so you've seen much larger, and I think you put together a good capital improvement plan. I think this is a pretty darn sound budget with 2 pennies basically, if you look at fire levy and property tax, and then the meals and lodging. I do have heartburn going from 4 to 10 on lodging. I have no heartburn with 1% on meals. I traveled around Warren, Fauquier, and here. And you can get a cup of coffee from $1.65 to $3 for the same, who knows what coffee brand you're buying. But so the 1% on that kind of, it's not like, if you go to the inn and you buy a $1,000 dinner, yeah, that 1% even adds up to something there. But it's not, when it's a pass-through that you're asking the guests to pay based on the range of the cup of coffee that I saw, I am not going to spend my gas going to Warren County for a cup of coffee when I can get it here and save my gas. So I think we just got to look at the big picture, continue to do what we can for tourism. And I said this years ago, the county had a tourism director, and she worked very hard to advertise in the DC area and bring business out here. So anything we can do to bring in more tourism dollars and agriculture dollars, and the regional commissions, trying to figure out who would be interested in a joint meat processing plant, because there isn't one in this area. And we approved it years ago that you could do it by right. I don't know if the size was there or not, but we've got to find ways to bring in money that fit with keeping Rappahannock beautiful and allowing people to live here, which is part of the conversation earlier when you were talking about ADUs. It's a great way to bring people, kids back and families back to their property. So I too had a little snippet, and John kind of killed the mood earlier today about it, but we all want to live in a beautiful place that is very peaceful, and we don't mind necessarily driving out and driving home, because the drive home is gorgeous. And although I do wish the town would accept the need to help 7,400 of our citizens, I don't know what the population is in the town now, but it's pretty.
It's booming, it's over 100 now.
Yeah. I feel like we've asked the question for a year. We've gotten the same answer for a year. So we either need to change the question or find others to ask the question. Because so far the no movement has been pretty disappointing. And I think you had some good ideas earlier today. I think, you may have said it for fun, but the chamber getting involved in this conversation.
Yeah, when's their next meeting? Not the chamber, the town.
Town council meets next Monday night. Yeah, and I feel strongly about that.
So I don't remember which month Mary was here, but it was probably February.
I think it was February.
And of course, everything's on YouTube, so you can go back, and we really specifically did that so people could be able to go back and listen to all the effort that she goes to, you know, make sure people are paying what they should be paying and not getting discounts when they shouldn't. So I don't know that I have anything else to add.
I want to look straight at you both and say that I do think we should be taxing our visitors where we can, when we can, within reason. And because a lot of people we all represent in the county, and you know them, they're your customers, your friends, are very tax sensitive for a reason. And many of them have owned property in Rappahannock County for far longer than I've lived here. And they are part of my constituency. Visitors are not. Visitors come here and benefit from our land use policies that have embedded within them serious fiscal consequences. And so we do need to rely on tourism to bridge, in part, the revenue gap. And I think where I'm stuck right now is, I think some of the tax burden does need to be shifted onto the shoulders of visitors. I do feel, and I have no problem saying this in front of my colleagues and say to you directly, and you know, I think you know my position has been pretty firm on this point. I do not feel great about raising county meals lodging taxes when the elephant in the room is right here in this town. And it just, I've said it before, I'll say it one more time. I find there's no logical explanation why we're here talking about taxing county visitors to county businesses even more, and the question in town remains unresolved. It's not right. And I'm glad Debbie raised it. I do think the time has come, and tonight was a start. I appreciate your emphatic statements in this regard. The time has come for county businesses to attend town council meetings to point out to them the unfairness that we're all living with. And I want to thank my colleagues, in particular Mr. Gino, for stepping up and raising the same question in a different way, and that is contributing to the county bottom line. And if you haven't heard my comments in this regard, we did run, our county staff through the Revenue Commissioner did run some rough numbers on what the real property taxes generate in the town of Washington that goes to the county bottom line. It's roughly somewhere, and I hope I'm right about this, somewhere in the range of $500,000. And Bonnie, am I correct that if you were to take all local tax revenue in the county in the aggregate, meaning real property, personal property tax revenue, meals and lodging, sales tax revenue were, if I remember correctly, were about $18.5 million?
I think that's close.
Okay. So our local tax revenue base in the county is about $18.5 million. About $500,000 of that comes from real property that's taxed in the town of Washington. An additional $240,000 comes out of the town through sales tax revenue. And if you consider that $30 million a year, that's not right. No, so no sales. We get sales tax. We get sales tax revenue, and it adds up to about from what we can calculate, it adds up to about $240,000. If you take that $240,000 and you divide it by $30 million in meals and lodging receipts, and the town effective tax rate comes in about 0.8%. So I know that we've all been fixated on this inequitable arrangement where the meals and lodging tax rate in the town is 2.5. But really the way I look at it is we're taxing visitors to the town of Washington from a county perspective at about 0.8%, because that's the $240,000 we're generating from sales tax revenue. So I just want to emphasize again, I do think that to the extent it is reasonable, we should be taxing our visitors to allow my broader constituency to live here, afford to live here, remain here, so that Rodney and Donna can continue to go on dates in their own community like they did, you know, more than 43 years ago.
I think those days have passed us by.
No, they haven't. But it is a balancing act, and I think we just need to find that balance, and I think the town is a big part of the question and try to resolve it.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Yes, sir.
So if we don't vote on this tonight, we have a meeting scheduled for next Monday. Is that correct?
Your next meeting is the 11th, so that looks like, yeah, what is it?
Yeah. And so assuming nobody makes a motion that we don't put on this, we will be sitting here at 7 o'clock next Monday evening to discuss this again.
Possibly the 13th as well.
Okay.
I'd feel better about that, just in light of their reaction.
I'm gonna let you know that May 13th is senior night
I won't be
at
sitting here May 13th.
RCHS.
May 11th, senior night at the soccer game, so one of them is one of them.
May 13th or May 11th?
May 11th and May 13th at the activities, so.
Yeah, so I would ask you to think about what different information you will receive. I would expect that the folks that you heard from during the public hearing are fairly decent representatives from their business. I don't speak for the entire community of the restaurant. Thank you. Don't say
I'm
that.
sorry, this is.
That's a little
not-
offensive to be
well,
saying
I'm
something.
sorry, this is not time for two-way speaking.
My
This is what I'm
my
saying.
perception is that other business owners owning similar businesses might feel the same way. And I expect you would hear very similar messaging. And so other citizens who don't own businesses might have a different perspective, similar to what you heard during your budget public hearing. So if you think that there's additional information in addition to that, that you can gain in order to help inform your decision on this ordinance amendment as well as your overall budget, then I would recommend that you seek that additional information. If you don't believe there's additional information, then I'm not sure what delaying a week will do to make your decision easier.
As I mentioned, the Washington Town Council meeting is next Monday night, and to the extent that county business owners might want to go to a town council meeting and speak during public comment and solicit a reaction from town council members about their current tax rate vis-a-vis the possible increase in the county meals and lodging tax rate, I think that would be useful. That's not necessarily direct input to us that changes any decision we make. But the second thing is, just as a courtesy, these two business owners from Sperryville have said that there are other businesses that weren't here tonight, who now represent tonight, that want to be, and for that reason alone, I want to afford them that opportunity. I'd much rather do that than to hear that we preclude those folks from providing input. It's just transparency and openness in government, and how I view it. I don't have anything else to do on a Monday or Wednesday night, so if I need to come back, I can do it.
Must be nice.
But I also understand you all have children in school and other obligations, so I don't want to create problems.
Obviously, our duty to the county takes priority. My bigger question is, what information is going to be different? And if there is information that's going to be different, what strategy would be different? I really feel like, I might have a little PTSD from last year, that some of that hearing was as late as it was because if you'll recall, we advertised one tax rate and then we got to this point and we said, you know what, let's go back to the drawing board. So it was delayed So we're actually following a very similar path here. The vote could potentially happen tonight because at this point last year, we said, you know what, let's go and we'll advertise yet a different tax rate. So my bigger question to my colleagues would be, what strategy, if we are gonna wait, if we're not gonna vote on this tonight, what strategy other than the town? Because we have all tried, my goodness, like I've been paraded over there, playing off of the bundt cake thing, and we have all tried, and after that had conversations and tried to be, so that's my question to my colleagues would be, if not tonight, what strategy, where are we headed, what strategy?
Yeah, so I guess the way I would answer that is, and Ms. Jewell is so diligent on the numbers, but one thing I think I would do for the sake of county businesses who we might be asking to tax their visitors at a much higher rate would be to go back once more and look at revenue projections within our county budget related to things like interest revenue and other calculation variables that flow into our total revenue numbers that are projections, and make sure those are fine-tuned to the extent they can be, so that I know where we end up in terms of our total anticipated revenue, and understand super clearly that there's no wiggle room there, and I doubt there is, but in an effort of due diligence, I mean, I would like to at least look at the assumed revenue projections in the budget that are by definition projections.
Madam Chair, dovetail Supervisor Whitson, I agree with you to a certain extent, and that extent being, we have asked Ms. Joel so many ways, from meeting to meeting, and I speak for me personally, I'm very comfortable with what we've asked of her and the results she's provided and the numbers, and asked her to go back, and this is not counting, this is in our meeting, we've asked her to go back to the drawing board. But I know personally, I've sent emails to her, gone and visited because I had questions to make sure. And again, I speak for myself, and typically lately the response I'll get was, I've answered that, and it's on page such and such of the budget, and, we're tracking it, so, I think, to Ms. Culver's point, was the strategy, for me personally, we have, dived into this budget and, remained steadfast when it comes to the schools and provided a good result there, I believe, keeping that level of funding, and we have dived into some of the other areas and postponing this a week or 2 weeks or whatever our limitations are. I'm sure that we'll get constituents that'll come in and probably in a different way voice some of the same concerns. I'm trying to put on this hat of what areas have we not heard from our public, our citizens in our community from. That's outside of, as you said today, you sat and talked for 3 hours about the courthouse, and I'm sure the cost of that came up as well, not counting the meetings we had outside of our normal commitments.
With the strategy conversation, it's not like we're looking for $10,000.
I get that. I totally get that. So let me just rest on the point that if there are additional people out there who want to provide input for the sake of transparency and open government, I'll rest on that. And if all the questions have been asked on revenue projections and there's no more fine tuning, and I doubt there really would be, then I'll abandon that concept and just say let's at least hear for some other folks. I agree, it might not change the decision made or our plan for balancing the budget, but if other people want to speak, and it's a matter of us coming back on another meeting night, I'm willing to do that. It's just one member of our board.
You know, I think the one thing we could look at is to say, I mean, I don't think we heard a lot of comments tonight about the property taxes, the fire levy tax. Just one comment about the land use taxes. Seems like meals and lodging are what we're talking about here,
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
If I'm reading this right. And so one thing we could look at is to say if we don't decouple meals and lodging, what would it require to reach the same point? You know, and I think that would be we may be able to pull that number up quickly, but I think you're gonna, you know, if it's $90,000 for 1 cent of meals and 59.
69.
Yeah, so it's about a 2 to 3, you know, ratio. And there's that piece that you pull out that's, you know, dedicated towards tourism, which I think has an opportunity to pay back in the long run. But you're probably talking about going to 6 cents for both of them, or something like
Which
that.
is where we were last year, and the board provided direction to us this year to take this route. And you could do neither. And so if the board's not inclined to have a decision on this ordinance or the whole budget tonight, what we would want to know is, you know, what information do you, not public sentiment, what information do you need from us to help make a decision, i.e. what blends of meals and lodging tax, and we can only go up to 5 on the meals because that's what we advertise, so we go 5 and 5 or 5 and 6 or 5 and 7. And then where do you want us to focus on expenditure reductions to balance?
No,
I'll just also add, I think very recently, well, I just know in my as Mr. Sella said, he knows he's emailed Bonnie and asked Bonnie. I know that very recently I asked Bonnie something, and some decisions in Richmond had been made that impacted what we had already worked on. So I share that to say, I know as recently as maybe 2 weeks, she went back and fine-tuned the projections and because people, again, bigger than Washington, people were making decisions that had negative impacts on us. What's that?
Bigger than Washington.
Yeah. Bigger than Little Washington.
How big Washington?
Anyway,
With that being said,
I'm comfortable. I agree with Mr. Settle. This is solid. I trust the work that Ms. Jewell has done. I am happy to hear from anyone. I just do not, I don't see where it will change anything that we do.
I agree with that.
And
Okay.
Who wants to make a motion? That's the question.
Yeah, we've heard tonight, that there are other people who couldn't be here, and it is a pretty big jump in the tax rate on lodging, and if there are other people who want to speak to it, I don't know, that will include restaurant owners who want to talk about the jump on meals. I'm not saying that I have a solution at the top of my head to plug the revenue. The revenue gap would be created if we ended up on tax rates that are lower than what had been advertised. But as I said twice already, I'm willing to come back and at least hear from some other business owners because it might spark in my mind some other ideas. I might be alone in that regard. I'm not trying to corner you all. I just don't think it's a huge sacrifice, at least for me to come back and hear from more business owners. If in fact they didn't see the advertisements or weren't aware that we're coming to a vote, et cetera, that's all.
I'm happy to talk to those business owners, and I would like to hear from them. I'm not sure at this point that we're at a point where it would be very easy to make a significant change to this budget after, how many meetings was it?
16.
16. You know, I'm not sure that that's, and so I don't want to exclude anybody's voice.
Yeah.
And I certainly welcome that, discussion, but I think we've got to go forward. So with that, I'll move to adopt the ordinance amending Rappahannock County Code, Chapter 151, taxation, as provided in the public documents.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second, and I'll open it for discussion.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to vote no, just because I, as I said, I think we just hear from the other business owners that I can feel good that I heard the request and try to accommodate more people to come in and talk. Again, I am surprised when people say that they weren't aware of something happening, but then I'm in the middle of it, and so I'm certainly aware of what we're doing.
As a business owner who was paying attention, I did not know this was the meeting where this would be happening, and I was paying attention to every single notice.
I'm not arguing with you.
I know, I just would like your other council members to know that.
So I'm just saying that I probably, after hearing from other business owners, I would likely vote yes, and I know that sounds like a technical distinction, but just on principle, I would want to come back on a different night and hear from everyone so that I could say that I had done that.
I am open to coming back on May 11th. The likelihood of anything changing other than hearing from our constituents, I think, is very slim at this point.
But
we don't have
I'm
funding to cover this.
I understand, and it's a small community. We know everyone knows everyone, and I just think that we don't, to come back one more time and not be overly bureaucratic about it would be in the spirit of Rappahannock County and a small community.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I too. I mean, if it was 100 people sitting here and wanted me to meet them this week, I'd do that. It's not that we don't want to hear their voice. And I can't, we just earlier looked at, the late fees on meals and laws tax and looked at that and 20 days, and of course you guys weren't here, but this was a previous discussion. Do we loosen that up a little bit? But that information is out there, and people are held. They got 20 days to pay their quarterly taxes, and we were steadfast on that. And a lot of that has to do with responsibility of business owners or whoever this may apply to be on top of their business. And this has been advertised, and again, I'm looking at it's like 17 or 18 times, but I do believe we canceled a work session or two because we were ahead of the game a little bit. And the question I get a lot is people are waiting for us to make a decision, and I just think there's been adequate time for citizens to come to the meetings and or reach out to any of us as representatives. So I don't know that waiting a week for me, it's not a neglecting or pushing the community citizens away. It's about now we have the information in front of us, we synthesized it, and data after data, we keep working. I think I'm ready to make a decision.
All right. At this time, it's a roll call vote. Mr. Settle? Aye. Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Comer?
Aye.
I'll vote nay for the reasons stated.
Okay, and I'll vote aye. All right. At this time, it is public comment. Anyone wishing to speak about anything, please be recognized and coming up. Yes, ma'am. Okay, sorry.
Oh,
I feel guilty I'm changing the subject. But I will say, if we don't have businesses in the county,
Can I have your
who's gonna
name?
stay?
Can I have your name and your district?
I'm Mary Anthony, I live at 293 Piedmont Avenue in Washington. I own it. I'm in the Hampton district. Never can remember, I want to be in the Piedmont district. I want Piedmont Avenue. Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize, I want to speak about the library. But I want to reiterate that if we don't have businesses in the county, who's going to want to come and stay? What are they going to do? You know, I watch them all the time walking around the block on little Main Street. There's not that much to do. So in order to bring tourists here, we've got to have businesses. And if there wasn't a cafe in Sperryville, where am I going to get a cup of coffee? So I hope the little guy, I'm voting for the little guy, big time. So the library, I'm just opposed to this on so many levels. Currently, we pay nothing for the building, and we're about to move into a rental property. Now I'm in real estate, and that's a bad deal. Okay, it makes no sense. You know, he's offered us a silly teaser rate for 1 year. So let's say out of a 20-year contract, that's equivalent to like 5 cents for a discount. And the rents are going to go higher every single year. So the library staff and everybody in the community that I've talked to wants to keep the beautiful library, but there are two people on the board of trustees who have the loudest voices. By the way, I'm in Friends of the Library, I should have mentioned that. So let's just talk aesthetics. I mean, it's a beautiful building architecturally, sort of Jeffersonian. It's in keeping with the character of Rappahannock County. It fits with this beautiful special place where we live that we're trying to save from tasteless development. The new space is literally going to be inside an office building at West River Commons. And the new location is just plain ugly. Let me not mince words. It was designed by a firm that specializes in modern design. It's just so out of character with the rest of the town, and it looks like something suitable for the far west, you know, Arizona or Nevada. All it needs is a sign that says Red Lobster. That's how absolutely generic it is. Okay, I hate it, unless you can't tell. I'm not holding back. So the developer is a public figure, so I looked it up, and he has personal stock holdings of $8 billion with a B. Good for him, but this is a Trojan horse. I mean, is it a tax write-off? Is that why he's like ramming this thing down our throats? That's what I think. I'm just guessing. But if this developer really wanted to leave a legacy, why doesn't it look more like his barn? Or if he wanted a different legacy, why isn't he willing to donate to the current library? And I have a few other things to say, but I'm going to cut it right there. And I would love to know where else I could speak on this same topic.
I expect it will be coming up for, you know, a month.
Well, I'm going to be there and I'll just hone it a little, but not everybody has a 5-minute limit. So
next month.
Yeah, keep coming.
Okay, you're on my list. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Karen Hunt, Jackson District. I'm not able to attend the day meetings. The Commissioner of Revenue spoke at one of your day meetings, and so I went to the Rappahannock News YouTube to watch that, and I've watched it twice. She spoke for about 45, 50 minutes. Incredibly informative. I thought it was March meeting, but I may be mistaken. It may have been February, but you can go to BoardDocs and Google the Board of Supervisors meetings and look at the agenda. A comment about the Rappahannock News. Part of why I reiterated my comments is the last time they were here. If you are not a subscriber to the Rappahannock News, you should be. It is a huge public service, what they do. I cannot say that enough. We all benefit from that. Sometimes you don't always like what they say, but this is, this is the press. You've already made your decision. I was going to talk about that meals and lodging chart where, 1% wasn't going to get you where you needed to go because you would actually be reducing your general fund revenue. Doing that 1% maximizes your tourism, and then it stays the same. So I won't, that's passed. I'm really glad that the last speaker mentioned the library because of all the things in my head that had slipped out, but I plan on going. I've already talked to the library director. I am remiss in writing comments to the library board of directors. I also do not think it is a good idea to move. Same comments, we have a paid-for building, dedicated. Now, I happen to agree with her comments on aesthetics, but people can differ. That is a county-owned building. It is on to 11. I have been in there where people come lost because, guess what, GPS doesn't always work out here. And they go in asking for directions and they're then pointed to county administration, which is in the farmhouse next door. But it's eclectic, it's cool. I have made and donated personal artwork that was custom tailored for their windows there. I love the staff. The parking is dedicated. Why would we go from a county-owned, paid-for building, land and building, to a place where we're paying rent, where I don't know what else is going on over there? You've got the food pantry, you've got housing, you've got other things. I don't know what else is going on. You've got one way in and out. I think there's going to be parking problems. I know it's more space. Again, I think we need to not, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Not in favor of library moving. Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Brooke Farrell, Wakefield District. So I own a building in Flint Hill, used to be Discovery Cafe. And I have been trying to get a project started there. I have found the building department to be a dead end. They have been evasive, non-communicative, and unclear in every way that they can possibly be. So I came here tonight to ask for some help, right? I'm about to put a whole bunch of money to renovate a building that should probably be torn down. I think you guys might have just pushed me towards just tearing it down, because I hear how you support businesses in this community, and I don't think I really want to get involved in that. But I just don't know what to say, so that's why I came. I also don't think the library should be moved. There you go. Thank you.
All right, not seeing anybody else for public comment. I'll close public comment.
And I can related public hearings on the budget and
We are next into old business, which is the consideration of the FY 2027 budget adoption, CY 2026 tax rate adoption, and FY 2027-2031 CIP adoption.
Can you put on that potential changes?
It was the March meeting that Mary attended.
Thank you. Mark?
So you will recognize this as the spreadsheet that we have been working off of through the budget process, the various changes that have been occurring to the recommended budget. This document that's in front of you, when we last ended the conversations on March 23rd, that was our last previous budget work session, we were to the good about $48,000 in the general fund. Since that time, the governor signed several bills. They were both related to the speed zone camera revenue. And that revenue, which was $90,000 in our budget for fiscal 27, is now limited to certain programs. Those being the cost of the monitoring device program itself, improvement of traffic safety, speed management, bike and pedestrian safety, public transit, and initiatives otherwise eligible for funding through the Virginia Highway Safety Improvement Program. So that in and of itself reduces our revenue by $90,000 in the general fund. I spoke with the sheriff about this, and based on conversations that she has had with her contacts, she felt very confident that this revenue would fund appropriately the $38,000 that's in the budget for in-car cameras for her deputies. And she cited that the person that she spoke with, well, the people that she has spoken with, said or questioned, don't those cameras improve your traffic safety enforcement? And don't those cameras improve your speed enforcement? And so, of course, the answer was yes to both of those. And so she is confident that that is an appropriate use of those dollars. So when you add that back in, that's a net revenue loss of $52,000. That caused us to be $4,041 short. So knowing that, as Mr. Whitson said, our projections are just our projections, I have plugged $4,041 in the real estate revenue projection for fiscal 27 and called the budget balanced. There were no changes on the other side of this sheet is the fire services fund. There have been no changes to that since we last spoke. And so the budget resolution that's in your packet for this evening takes into account the reduction of the revenue associated with the speed zone cameras. It adds back the $4,041 for the real estate revenue plug, and again, that resolution too is balanced.
What's your, thanks for mentioning the next work you did on balancing through an adjustment to the revenue projection on real estate. What has your historical experience been since you've been in the county in terms of plus or minus on your projections on real property tax revenue? Because I know that Mary, our revenue commissioner, has a very, granular hold on individual properties, improvements thereof, and updating the tax rolls. So just for my understanding, and for the newest members of our board, and I guess giving you an opportunity to say how good you are at these projections, how close do you come year to year in landing on a number that's solid?
So that projection is done by combination of work from the commissioner's office, the treasurer's office, and from the county administrator's office. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we are year to year very close.
Would you say plus or minus 2% or 1%?
I would say probably plus or minus 2, yes.
Okay.
And that's considering back taxes that are paid during the year.
And that was, so you had mentioned, I was focused on the revenue commissioner and valuation of properties, but you're saying that you also get additional money collected data from the treasurer's office that flows into those projections because you are realizing sort of old accounts receivable that that are brought to bear in a particular year.
And roll back taxes on land use when people exit, which is
Yeah.
impossible to
Okay.
predict when that's gonna happen, but it's all,
And the treasurer and I talk about, tax sale revenue, when is that gonna be released by the clerk's office? We talk about multiple things. And I made the mistake my first year here of not talking to the commissioner and the treasurer, and I will never, ever do that again.
Well, no, it's,
Localities are different. In my prior locality, the treasurer and commissioner wanted nothing to do with the real estate projections.
well, yeah, so I think, I wanted there to be an opportunity for you to describe the process for the benefit of the public, because these are not wild projections, these are not best guesses, they're zeroed in, and I know earlier, I caused some consternation here during our meeting of suggesting I wanted to revisit projections, and I guess in principle, it's always a learning experience to like at least understand how you arrived at a projection. I believe on interest revenue, that was one projection that was very wisely fine-tuned through your, accounting for interest rate changes quarterly as opposed to annualized, and that did make a difference in the interest revenue that we projected that year. But on real estate, it is really impressive that you land within 2% plus or minus. I mean, it makes our life so much easier to be able to count on that.
Bonnie and Debbie, Nick, refine over time, but we know that we'll be misses high and misses low on various revenue sources, and just empirically over time, you land about the right place. And you do the best you can when you're forecasting 18 months out for some of these revenues, because it's the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Where are we on interest revenue projections? We feel, I know we can never know where the Fed is going, and especially now, we definitely don't know where the Fed is going. But what calculation variables have you brought to bear on our interest revenue projections for the upcoming
This is,
fiscal year?
let me just look at my note to make sure that what I'm thinking is correct.
I said I wasn't going to do this, and now I'm doing it.
Of course,
And we'll still be done with it
we
tonight.
have a new chair of the Fed, and we know what his directives are.
Correct. And I want to make sure that we've thought this through, because it's been very, I would say, compared to prior budget seasons, we haven't discussed a lot about interest revenue. I think we finally corrected it.
And remember, the other side of that is the cash you have in the bank, right? So
Yes.
you're putting that to use, and so as you spend those dollars, they're not earning interest anymore. So between that and interest rates not going up.
And that is factored in, a reduction in the cash balance is factored into this projection. The note doesn't talk about that, but the note says, and this is what's behind the calculation, we're on track to meet the $500,000 projection for fiscal '26. Federal Reserve is expected to decrease the rate once more during calendar year 2026. We know they just didn't do that, but the current federal funds target range is 3.5 to 3.75. The budget assumes we'll be at 3.75 for the first 3 months of fiscal '27, and at 3.5 beginning in October 2026 through June 2027.
Good.
So, whether that happens or not,
But that.
we'll know once it happens.
But that already contemplates the change in the Fed chairman and the likely policy directive that will.
Yeah, and the investment of funds for courthouse design that are coming out of cash and going into a consultant, and the roof and these other projects that the board has committed to do, that you're going to be moving a significant amount of cash out of your fund balance.
Okay, so this one is a lot more unwieldy. What's our plus or minus on interest revenue, or has it been? Do you feel like is it plus or minus 5%?
I'm gonna have to look at these numbers. I mean, I just don't have that information here with me.
On the way up, we missed it significantly.
I remember.
And we chased it year after year after year, and
So
now we want to avoid the other way around.
Yeah, I
because
think
it's a lot worse to the bottom line when you're missing going down.
This was not a request to look at that. I am interested in some of these projections, and that's like the only one that I can think of that is super hard for us locally to nail down with the precision that you do on real estate.
And
because there's so many other external factors.
Yeah, the calculations involved are far more detailed than probably anybody else's.
Yeah, but I was just.
I mean, other locales.
Thanks.
Any questions from Ms. Jewell?
Thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah,
This budget season's been very helpful.
Great. Anyone have a motion?
So if the board is inclined to move forward, you had 3 resolutions before you, one for the budget, one for the tax rate, and one for the CIP. That order probably makes some sense.
Well, I'll go ahead and, I said what I said on meals and lodging, and that ship has sailed, but I will put forward a motion to approve the provided budget adoption resolution.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. These are resolutions, so again.
That's the first one.
Mr. Settle?
Aye.
Mr. General?
Aye.
Ms. Comer? Aye. Mr. Whitson?
Aye.
And I also.
I'll go ahead and put forward a motion to approve the provided tax rate resolution. That'd be clear. This is on the real property and fire levy tax rate.
I'll second that one.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Settle?
Aye.
Mr. General?
Aye.
Ms. Comer? Aye. Mr. Whitson?
Aye.
And I also.
And I'll go ahead and put forward a motion to approve the capital improvement plan adoption resolution.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Just again, thank you, Ms. Jewell.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Mr. Settle?
Aye.
Mr. General?
Aye.
Ms. Comer? Aye. Mr. Whitson?
Aye.
And I also.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.
I went back to my list from the recommended budget presentation of the decisions that we would need from the board. And you've checked off everything. The last thing I did want to make sure of, I believe I know your direction, but I want to make sure of this. You will recall that the state budget includes a 2% bonus at the end of fiscal 26 for state-supported local employees. And county administration recommended that you forego that in fiscal 26, that bonus, which is actually a second bonus in fiscal 26, in favor of the ongoing 2% pay for performance that you've just now approved as part of the budget for fiscal 27. Before I make that assumption that that is affirmatively what the board wants to do, I want to make sure I hear that from you.
We agreed to it before. Anybody have any issues?
That's what I recall.
Yes, that's the way it was presented. I just want to make sure.
I'll go back in my notes and check, but that's.
Which meeting was that?
Yeah.
I don't know where to start.
And of course, we would need to know if we would pull the lever on a FY26 bonus quickly, but the state does allow that to trail into FY27.
Yes.
And so you actually, you go home and you say, I don't know what she was talking about. That isn't what I wrote in my book. Let us know and we'll bring it back at another meeting.
So again, to be clear to the public and to the employees who have already heard this once, it was our recommendation that the board forego that in fiscal 26, that bonus, in favor of the ongoing 2% pay for performance in fiscal 27.
Yeah. And before you leave this agenda item, I would ask you to consider canceling the mail-in for May 13th budget work sessions.
I'll move that we cancel this.
I'll say.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll put forward a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, everyone.
How's Michael doing?
He's got his vote.
Okay.